You've heard it by now. ChatGPT and Google are pulling answers straight from Reddit. So you open the app and thinking you'll figure it out in 10 minutes, which is what I tried to do. Didn't work. 10 minutes later, you close it. No idea where to post. No idea if even it's worth it for a business your size. But here's the thing. Reddit isn't a channel you post to. Reddit is a community you earn your way into. And for small teams without a marketing department, that can feel like one more thing you don't have time for, yet you know it's important. Today, we're answering the question a lot of you have been asking quietly. Should your brand even be on Reddit? And if it is, what does it actually look like when it's just you or a small team? This is Strategy Talk. Stay tuned. I'll be right back.
Let's strategize together. Let's hear it from an expert. Join the conversation, it's informative and free. You and me, let's talk some strategy. Now here's your host, Dorien Morin-van.
Hello, everybody. This is Strategy Talks. It's another Tuesday, and we're live at noon today with an agency owner who has a Reddit agency. So I'm very excited to talk about this. We were in the green room chatting, so I can't wait for you to meet him. But before you do, I want to welcome everybody to this another live episode of Strategy Talks. I know I've mentioned it before, but every single episode in 2026 is live. So if you happen to listen to this and you're like, hey, I wish I could attend live. We're live every week on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube. So join us live and ask questions, right? That's what this is all about. Now, before I welcome my guests onto the stage, I want to welcome all of you who are listening or watching, but also those of you who download and listen to Strategy Talks as a podcast every single week. We appreciate you so much. So we're going to talk about Reddit today with my friend. I'm going to bring him onto the stage, Johnny Wade. How are you today, Johnny?
Great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So we were talking in the green room about Reddit, and I'm really excited because when you and I were talking, it's kind of in the background of a lot of us marketers. We've heard we should be on Reddit. We're smart marketers. We're like, oh, we could maybe figure this out. I did the same thing after I booked you on the show. I went to Reddit. I'm like, oh, I have an account. It's been a long time. Do I even know how to log in? I went in there and then I went, well, I don't know what to do. I should be able to figure this out, but I don't know what to do. And so I think this is what happens to a lot of us. So how can we figure this out? Let's start with the basics. Why Reddit? Why now? And what's happening?
Yeah, I think there's a few answers to that question. I think the main aspects of this are maybe threefold. One is Reddit has grown exponentially, and I don't know if everybody's aware to the size and the acceleration of its growth, but it's Reddit's grown from 200 million weekly active users in 2023 to almost 500 million weekly active users today. Why that's happened. 4.5 years ago, they signed a license agreement with Google. So I'm sure everybody, whether they were aware or not, about 4 years ago, you started Googling something and all of a sudden Reddit pops up most of the time. Fast forward to 2024, OpenAI signs a licensing agreement with Reddit. So now with the advent and growth and acceleration and adoption of LLMs like ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, now Reddit is a top-cited source, and in most of these models is the top-cited source. So it's number 2 in Google, obviously behind YouTube because that's their product. But in most of these models, it is the training ground. It is cited the most. And what that's done is bring in a lot of folks that were not Reddit users. And some interesting statistics to that are half the people on Reddit aren't even logged in. So that's an indication that they're coming from outside sources. So I think it's a great time for everybody to start dipping their toe in and understanding it because of the volume, the size, the relevancy. I mean, Wall Street Bets, there was a movie made that's kind of like anchored on Reddit. So it's definitely become more mainstream than it used to be. I think part two is just in the world of AI slop now, right? People are looking for a safe space to engage, to get real user feedback. Reddit's a self-governed platform, so it has that level of objectivity that I think a lot of people are looking for. And then I think third is just Reddit post-IPO has invested a lot into its advertising platform. And what we see is there are a lot of brands that are spending and succeeding on Meta and Google, but the cost of that for the same result is going up. So they're looking for different avenues to kind of diversify their media mix, and in some instances looking at Reddit as a potential avenue for that. So like Reddit has, they're still a really small part of the overall investment in media mix, but they've gone 3x as far as like advertisement in the last year. So I think all those things added up. There's a lot of other details there, but I think that's the reason everybody's starting to just at least have the conversation of, should we be on Reddit? What do we do there? How do we understand it?
Yeah. So the conversations on Reddit, they're real conversations with real people, right? And it shows up in Google, ChatGPT, you just mentioned all that. So so it's because the licensing deal, that's why it shows up. So you said half of the people that are on Reddit aren't even logged in. Does that mean they're using Google to find an answer? They're seeing the AI generated answer, which is a Reddit answer. Is that what you mean?
Yes. So they're Googling something. I think I don't quote me on this, but I think a term plus Reddit on Google is like the third most Google thing in the world, right? So people look at it as a validation point of, Google is still owning the lion's share of search, but that's starting to shift substantially into LLMs. But then when you go to the LLMs, Reddit is also the top cited source. So, and it's also the main training ground, especially for ChatGPT. So even if Reddit's not sourced, there's a good chance that the Reddit data is populating, especially in ChatGPT, but also other LLMs. So that is the reason, is like it is seen as an objective place to do research and also a validator. One other statistic that I came across 2 weeks ago that I thought was really interesting, and I'm trying to remember the exact percentage, but it was somewhere between 60 and 70% of people use Reddit to validate AI answers. So even if AI is not citing it, they're still going to Reddit to validate what ChatGPT served them. So I think that's an incredibly interesting data point to kind of indicate how Reddit is becoming a part of like the masses, kind of like research and consideration, in searching something.
Yeah. So I read quite a few. I scroll Facebook here and there, right? Because I'm of that Gen X generation who started out with Facebook. And so a lot of these Reddit conversations end up on Facebook. And what strikes me is that they're the human stories, lots of emotional stuff, family stuff. So when I see those threads on there, and obviously it's that emotional hook gets me. So knowing that's part of the conversations, those are some of the conversations on there, not all of them, obviously. But why should a brand be on Reddit? And is there like a test, like, is this going to be good for my brand or not? Do you own an agency, 9 months in, incredible what you're doing. Do you have like, when somebody comes to you, is the test a budget, or is the test like, hey, this is not going to be good for you because you're not there? Is there some prerequisite stuff that needs to be in place before Reddit works? I guess this is a long way of answering you that question.
So I'll say this before I actually get into the answer. Most of the brands we get into, there is a reason for them to be in Reddit. And I know that's like, I own an agency and that's like self-serving, but I would say a vast majority, like 98% of the brands that we talk to, there's a reason for them to be in Reddit. Now, what you look at to evaluate, you're looking at audience size, so addressable audience, and really you're looking at what communities, i.e. subreddits in Reddit terms, are relevant for my brand to be a part of. What's the audience size? And ChatGPT having the license agreement, you can simply, in some of these instances, ChatGPT it and say, okay, directionally, what's the audience size for the communities we should be a part of? You also look at the conversations that have commercial intent. So another interesting statistic is 40% of the conversations on Reddit have commercial or buying intent behind them, which is huge. If you have 500 million weekly active users, 40% of those regular conversations have buying intent. That becomes very powerful for a brand that wants to be huge.
Yeah.
So there's an aspect of scale. And then the last point is just understanding, and this is really where you get into the nuance of Reddit, understanding how friendly the communities are to a brand. Now there's like details, and that's part of our strategy of what a brand can and cannot do in Reddit, but understanding, how users interact with brands, if they do at all, how strict the moderators are. So that can be from the brands or just from individuals posting, because some brands are, if you're transparent and doing it the right way and you're compliant as a brand within Reddit, the moderators will be friendly. There are some Reddit moderators that are not. So, if you were to say, my brand has 15 really substantial subreddits that we should be a part of, looking at kind of the history, the rule sets the moderators have put in these communities is an important data point, because you may say these 15 are relevant, but really 11 are going to be where we can kind of stake our flag and really build in, because the other 4, the moderators simply just don't want a brand interacting in. Now, that can change on the advertising side. There are some instances where those communities allow advertising, but they're not friendly to organic posting for a brand posture. But I would really look at those elements to say, okay, there's an opportunity here as far as volume. Is there buying intent opportunity, which usually there is. And that scales exceptionally high for B2B brands, because if you're a B2B, it's a B2B community or there's B2B intent, like why are you on Reddit? It's probably like a review or asking advice or a service, but the audience size will be smaller. Mm-hmm. So generally those 3 things will indicate to you, is Reddit a good place to grow? But like I said, like spoiler alert, in most instances it is. For almost every brand we interact with.
Yeah. So what I heard you say is that if you're a B2B brand, often people go there as like they're like buyer intent. They're ready to go hire somebody, or they're ready to make a move, and they're going there for validation or for.
Yeah. So if you if say I was evaluating a B2C brand versus a B2B, the difference would be, the B2C brand maybe is targeting 10 subreddits, and there's 15 million weekly active users in those subreddits. And then the commercial intent, we'll do like a retrospective and look at like the last 3 to 6 months. Say in aggregate, 30 to 40% of the conversations in those subreddits have commercial intent. Obviously, like extremely valuable. Switch that to a B2B, it may be 2 million people, right? So a fifth or so of the B2C audience, but there's 70% commercial intent in those conversations, right? Just because of the nature of why, somebody with the B2B intent is on Reddit. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. So for a smaller company, for somebody with maybe a smaller team, maybe just a medium-sized business, what is the expected ROI to get, and how long will it take to show ROI? I mean, I'm assuming I have been part of agencies. I've worked for agencies. I work with companies that come to me after they've worked with agencies. I know how this works. There's at least 3 to 6 months commitment, sometimes a year. Where, I know everybody gives expectations. What are the expectations of ROI on starting a content strategy on either whether it's organic or paid, which we'll get into next? What's the ROI?
Let me talk about organic because it's a little more nuanced. Reddit is, I think on the advertising side, as an initial test, ROAS should really be your North Star, depending on what your milestone is that you need to hit for profitability. On the organic side, it's different milestones. So in the first 3 months, I would draw like a difference from SEO, where SEO can take, anywhere from 5 to 7 months. I have a really deep level of experience in SEO. I've been in that world for almost 16 years. But Reddit, because it's a closed system, because it's the top cited source, moves a bit faster, especially on the AI visibility side. So in the first 3 months, you're really looking at building strong impression share, and you're looking at building consistent AI citations month over month. So by the end of month 3, you should start to see, consistently, a couple 100,000 impressions per month. You should start to see a consistent, say it depends brand to brand, but say anywhere from like a 4 to 8% increase in AI citations month over month, which is powerful because I think in the world of like GEO, everybody's kind of asking the question, what do we do about this? And I always say, like, if there are top 3 things you do to address AI visibility for your brand, Reddit's one of those 3. So we're not solving the whole problem, but we're solving one of the 3.
Mm-hmm.
And with those impression growth, the byproduct effect is you're building credibility with your buyers. Mm-hmm. Those impression, that growth in impression share turns into referral traffic at some point. And then as you increase AI citation, you're also increasing inferred LLM traffic back to your site. So from month 3 to 6, that starts to compound, and you're starting, part of our process is we launch the user profiles for the brand, but also their subreddit. So as we're increasing visibility, you're also increasing visitors to your own subreddit, which is the one place that you can be a bit more promotional, post links back to your site because you own it and moderate it, right? So you set the rules. And then that can start to compound like referral traffic. So to put it plainly, I would say like months 1 to 3, referral traffic you can't push because like the cardinal sin of Reddit is jumping in as a brand, posting links back to your site and getting banned from the communities you want to grow in. But it's really reliant on the growth of your own subreddit. So months 3 to 6, once we've started to really build things, that's when referral traffic can become more of a substantial KPI. And then after the 6-month point, it hits maturation, right? Where you are, building not only community in the subreddits, building your own community in your own subreddit, but starting to build real relationships with the moderators. So like, for the brands that work with us, months 4 through 6 are really focused on like AMAs, which stands for Ask Me Anything. So that's more or less like, it's like Reddit's version of a webinar in written format. Those are important because they're validated by the moderators of the communities you're growing in. So oftentimes they'll like pin that AMA into their subreddit. Great exposure from a marketing KPI, like impression share and visibility for your brand. They're also an AI goldmine because it's mass UGC Q&A format that LLMs love to serve up. So there's some details in there as far as like the KPIs you measure, but I would say those are the basics of it. Like impression share, AI citation growth, starting to grow month over month by the end of month 3, and then 3 to 6 is where referral traffic, own community, and your subreddit really start to build.
Okay, very cool. So for some of your clients, can you name, not your clients, can you name how many subreddits you would start yourself? Because you mentioned, there might be 10, 15 good ones, 11 that the moderator allows you to be in. How many subreddits would you suggest somebody starts that will start, giving results at that 3 to 6 month mark?
Yeah, so it's really just the one.
Oh, just one. Okay, all right. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, basically as a brand, and there is avenues to start like non-brand subreddits, which is a more advanced strategy. But in building in Reddit, you're looking at the upside and the safety of it, and the safety being like it's a self-governed platform, which is why users like it so much and why LLMs feed on it. If like, where else do you have a platform of 500 million people, self-governed, contributing content regularly of their own volition?
Sure.
But that needs to be honored by the brands trying to engage. So like, I think the safest way to go about it is really start to build your branded subreddit first, because branding your profiles and branding your subreddit is the main mechanism in being compliant. Like, there are obviously layers of rules that you need to follow outside of that, but being transparent. Hey, we're the brand. We're not here to spam Reddit. We're here to engage thoughtfully. So like, an example of like, we build a subreddit for a brand, the bio of that subreddit won't be, hey, we're Nike, like buy our shoes. It'll be more of like, this is a community to discuss, the world of basketball, the culture behind it, obviously like, shoe fandom and things like that, sponsored by Nike, right? To really drive community and help build an authentic engagement, as opposed to, we're X brand, please buy our product. Here's another piece of owned media for you to engage with to purchase more products. And it will yield that, but it's more of, kind of like a gentle approach to that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you think somebody, we know we talked in the green room about, who's on your staff and how you build your agency so quickly, but do you think that somebody with community management as a moderator, somebody who already owns a community has a leg up to understanding what it takes to be on Reddit?
Yeah. So not as a reco plug, but a little bit as a reco plug. A lot of our staff are moderators. So we have on staff people that have agency experience in social listening, community management, social media marketing. But we really aim to bring people on that are moderators and have been moderators for a long time. So, like, for example, like one person on staff oversees the third largest subreddit community in the world, and we have another person on staff who's in the top 10 moderators as far as influence and amount of subreddits they oversee. I think they oversee like 65 subreddits. The reason that's important is understanding moderators and how they're treating brands. So like how does a moderator build their rule set? As a brand, how do you honor that? What are best practices as far as reaching out to moderators and communicating with them? So having that deep level of understanding, right, is strategic from our end as an agency, but it also is just important to the overall success. So whether you're an agency or brand, having an understanding of how these moderators are allowing brands to engage or banning them or removing posts, there's the positive side and the negative side, is really crucial to understanding how you build. And if you don't have that understanding and you're just kind of trying to fly under the radar, that usually ends up backfiring because the moderators are looking to protect the thing that they've built. In some instances, like even people on our staff, they built their subreddits over 10, 15 years. So they're not looking to just allow a brand come in there, ruin the experience for their community by spamming it, essentially. So I would say that's arguably the most crucial thing, is understanding the positioning of the moderators, why they're doing what they're doing, how they want you to engage, and how they don't want you to engage.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally get that, but I want you to explain to everybody else. I used to moderate the largest social media manager Facebook group on Facebook. Right. And so for a brand, and yeah, absolutely. All the stuff that you're saying was happening in there too. People would come in and want partnerships or want to, just go in there and blast their own stuff. And I was continually, reinforcing rules and, sharing to people what our vision was, and that vision didn't include them blasting to all our members. So I totally get that. So I do think, so what we were talking about is your agency, Reco, reco.co, by the way, if you want to check it out, really values, you were saying, I wrote it down. Let me see if I can find it. So you're using AI as an accelerant, but you're really using the humans, the moderators, the knowledge they have to build these subreddits and to moderate for these brands that you are your clients. So for any of you that are watching, that are listening to this, it is all human built. And of course, everybody right now in marketing is using AI for different things. Of course we do. But these are real humans on Reddit doing a lot of this work.
Yep. Yeah. And that's an important point, because Reddit especially is not a platform to over automate. Like anybody that follows any kind of Reddit news on LinkedIn or elsewhere, especially in the last 2 months, you see Reddit is putting a heavy focus on using their own internal AI and community teams to really push out like AI spam. So we put a pretty heavy focus, if not an extremely heavy focus, on not just humanizing it for the sake of like not triggering a spam filter or anything, but because the way that you grow authentically on Reddit is through thoughtful engagement, right? We're trying to establish credibility, thought leadership, objective helpfulness for the brands that engage with us as their agency to help them engage on Reddit. And yeah, we use AI to understand the data. Like, I mentioned like risk assessments for moderators. We'll use AI to look at like the last 6 months of how they're engaging. However, we're not going in and now blasting that moderator or that community with AI slop. We just have an understanding from the data and aggregating it at scale of what do they need, right? Because our whole positioning is, not just play nice, but like really lean into the fact of why Reddit is great and why so many users are adopting it. And if brand does that, you'll have like a sustainable, growing, like new piece of owned media that scales and can build credibility for your brand long term.
Sure. So what's the fastest way to get kicked out of a subreddit?
There's a few things. So there's I would say there's a couple ways. So one of the things that we differentiate ourselves as an agency from is we do everything through Reddit's code of conduct, which means be transparent that you're the brand, play well, reach out to the moderators, read the rule sets in the communities you're engaging with. There are some folks that will build a private profile and then more or less fake build a conversation around a brand. That is a quick way to just, either from the moderator, the users, or even Reddit the company, to get pushed out. Other two things I think I mentioned before, you're not there to build a community. You're just there to try to, solicit and sell your product, which we're marketers, so I totally understand that. I've done paid media, I've done SEO, I've done everything, and at the end of the day, you are looking to drive traffic and users and conversions to your brand. It's the overdoing it that can kill brands early on Reddit. And then the last piece is, some of why brands want to be on Reddit is because the conversation's already happening. And especially if you're a larger brand, like at scale, and Google's indexing it, and sometimes there's a reputation management problem that's just accelerating, and brands will jump in and respond when their brand is mentioned and never engage elsewhere. And so you could imagine how users react to that, of like, never seen you here before, and all of a sudden your brand is mentioned in a negative light, and here you are. It's obviously not met with a positive reception. So I think it's really like my advice to anybody, whether they're engaging an agency like ours or trying it out on their own, is stop and listen and really understand the rule sets, because Reddit's really specific to the communities you're engaging in. Like, there's the understanding of Reddit overall, but there's also like how you build your own community, how you engage with other communities, what are the nuances to that community, what's the tone, right? And really like honoring that, I think, is the key to success long term.
Yeah. All right. I love that answer. So what, with AI search pulling so heavily from Reddit right now, how should that change a business's content priorities going into the next year? I'm kind of looking ahead to, 2027. I know we still got almost 2 quarters left of 2026, but say, what should we put in place right now? Should we go and create our own subreddits? Should we do stuff on our website? Should we do something different on our blog? What is something that we should be working on right now to not be left behind? Because I think that's the biggest worry in all of us.
Yeah, I think there's a couple facets to this. So I would say, look at content as a Swiss Army knife. If you create one piece of content, that should be used in multiple avenues. And I think Reddit should be a part of that. So if you've created a piece of content that's on your website or in other social platforms, like, use your subreddit to syndicate that.
Okay.
And keep in mind, like, there's the difference of where you're posting content in your own subreddit and when you're posting out to, subreddits that are non-brand. And there's nuance to what goes out. So if it's your own subreddit, you can be a bit promotional and things like that. You own it, you set the rules. When you're posting into other subreddits, you probably do need to remove those promotional factors or tweak the content a bit. And really understand like the tone and context of what's being talked about. So like, don't post erroneous things into those. But I think, the interesting thing about AI visibility in the world of GEO, AEO, everybody uses a different acronym now. But I think it's not just one thing anymore, right? Like, myself, coming from a heavy SEO background, a lot of what you're engaging with is your website, your .com, to build visibility in Google. And I think GEO's changed that, where it's not just website. It's not just Reddit, honestly. Like I said, Reddit's one of the top 3. Maybe the top 1, but it's not just Reddit. So I would say, like, look at your .com, look at Reddit, look at your PR. Look at the top cited sources to understand where you build. And then as you build up content, spread it out and then understand the nuance of each platform, obviously Reddit being an example of that, so that it builds positive engagement and doesn't backfire.
Yeah. So you're saying build it slow, but build it everywhere.
Yep.
All right. That makes sense. Well, I've got one more question.
Sure.
If somebody's listening today and they're going, okay, I got to go to Reddit. What's the one thing they should do?
Yeah.
Time they have. Should they start their own subreddit or should they do research first?
Yeah, I think that the most fruitful thing to do is build your brand profile. So, if you're a brand, to be compliant, profile and you can have several profiles. So you can have say you're Nike, you have you/Nike. You can also have like personal ones. So that can be Johnny Nike, Dorien Nike, Tim Nike.
Yeah.
And before you engage, join the communities that you think are relevant for your brand and just start reading. Just start scrolling, reading, looking at what people are engaging with, looking how people are interacting. I think one of the cool things about Reddit is even in the most technical, directional subreddit, you're going to have the human flavor. People talking like you talk in person, making jokes, doing different things. And I think it'll really help people understand the tone that you need to set, what types of conversations are happening regularly. And then once you start to feel comfortable and you've interacted from your profile, maybe you get a little more comfortable to start commenting on threads. Again, be as objective as possible, be helpful. And then, if you want to launch your own subreddit from there, go for it. But I would give it a few weeks of like really just building those, like starting those profiles. It takes 60 seconds to start a profile. And just start understanding the platform. So I think stopping and listening is your best initial approach, and then you can slowly build from there.
All right, awesome. Well, this has been a great conversation. Where can people meet you, Johnny, to learn more from you and to potentially check out reco.co and see if, they want to work with an agency or just be connected to you? Because I'm sure you're sharing, I know you are, especially on LinkedIn, you're sharing all kinds of great information. So is that the best place for people?
Yeah, you can visit our website. I post very regularly to the blog, more expanded content that I'm doing on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. So reco.co is the website. There's a lot of information on there regarding, there's a nice FAQ section if there's other unanswered questions, but feel free to either fill out that form. We can book a call, reach out via LinkedIn. We can connect that way. But I'm an open book, happy to answer any questions. I know a lot of folks are considering Reddit, but it's a new platform for them. So I know there's a lot of learning. So feel free to reach out in any capacity.
Yeah, awesome. And we didn't really talk about paid, but is that something your agency takes care of too?
So we're a full service agency, top tier partner with Reddit, can help with the setup, the build, optimization of that. There's some newer campaign types that are more conversion driving. So if you've tried Reddit advertising more than I'd say 6 or 7 months ago and it was lackluster, they now have a max campaign type that's been very fruitful for brands that are looking to kind of diversify. So happy to talk about that as well. We have a great ad team as well. So whatever your flavor, let me know. Happy to walk through it with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Johnny, for being here. And all of you who stayed to the end to watch this, stay to the end to listen to Strategy Talks on the podcast. I'll be back next week with another episode. Thank you so much for watching and for listening. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.